Jujutsu Kaisen has several characters stated to be able to one day surpass the realm of special grade. Among those is a sorcerer second only to Gojo in the modern era, Yuta Okkotsu. And with Yuta only being a second year, I decided to take a look at his abilities and power to be able to see what Yuta's full potential really is. In order to find Yuta's full potential, we first need to take a look at Yuta's abilities, and how he can make them stronger. For starters, Yuta has immense amounts of cursed energy, even more than Gojo, and with Rika as backup, he's able to refill his cursed energy reserve whenever he puts on the ring. Yuta's massive amounts of cursed energy not only allow him to reduce any damage that he might take, but also gives him the strength and speed to keep up with physical powerhouses like Ishigori. On top of that, Yuta's cursed energy reserve allows him to spam reverse curse technique, making his endurance in a fight incredibly long. But where Yuta really shines is in his versatility when combined with Rika. Even while partially manifested, Rika is able to completely immobilize someone as strong as Yuji, collapse parts of bridges, and due to the nature of Rika's partial manifestation, she's able to catch people off guard by simply appearing near them. And once Yuta fully manifests Rika, he gains the full extent of her abilities. Rika fully manifested gives Yuta access to his copied curse techniques, including the likes of curse speech, sky manipulation, and Druv Shikigami, an arsenal of cursed tools, the ability to dip into Rika's bottomless reserve of cursed energy, and the fact that Rika is a completely separate entity from Yuta effectively turns most fights with him from a 1v1 into a 2v1. Lastly, Yuta is confirmed to have a domain expansion, but it's not actually clear what it does just yet. So while Yuta is exceptionally strong, having things like multiple curse techniques, a domain, reverse curse technique, and one of the highest curse energy reserves in the series, his abilities are not without limit. Yuta's biggest limiting factor right now is his 5-minute timer. Because Rika can only be fully manifested for 5 minutes, Yuta is simply deprived from a lot of his abilities most of the time. He can't use any copied curse techniques, and since his curse technique is copy, this effectively means that he has no curse technique at base. He also loses access to any of his special curse tools, so he's just stuck with his basic katana. And to top it all off, we've seen that under tough circumstances, Yuta at base can run out of cursed energy and needs Rika to give him a refill so he can continue fighting. And we've seen that Rika herself has limits. While Rika is incredibly strong, able to toss around Ishigori with basic punches and shoot off blasts of pure cursed energy, she's been shown to be able to actually take damage. Even while fresh on the 5-minute timer, a single punch from Ishigori was enough to send Rika flying into a building and was confirmed to be tough to take. On top of that, it's not entirely clear what Rika actually is right now. If she's still a vengeful cursed spirit, then a single attack imbued with positive energy would just one-shot her. So looking at Yuta's limits, it's clear that for Yuta to reach his full potential, he'd have to get rid of the 5-minute timer. Ideally, Yuta would have unlimited access to Rika, granting him 24/7 access to cursed energy, cursed tools, cursed techniques, and a partner to fight alongside with, all without having to worry about his time running out or having to use Rika in a sparing manner. The next step for Yuta to reach his full potential is to simply copy more techniques. As far as we've seen, Yuta only has 3 copied techniques, those being curse speech, Druv Shikigami, and sky manipulation. We currently don't know what the conditions are for a technique to be copied, but regardless, it's clear that Yuta would be massively amped if he copied more curse techniques, especially considering how he's seemingly able to use the techniques just as well, if not better, than the owner. Yuta is currently sitting in a room full of people with incredibly strong techniques, so it's a no-brainer for him to at least try to copy some of them. Imagine if Yuta copied Hikari's technique and managed to hit jackpots while having access to his already bottomless pool of cursed energy, or if he copied blood manipulation, or even Angel's ability to erase other techniques with Jacob's ladder. Yuta's ceiling is practically non-existent because of that, since he can always grow stronger by just copying more techniques, and if his fight with Kenjaku is coming up, then Yuta managing to copy Curse Spirit Manipulation and the Anti-Gravity Technique, along with whatever else Kenjaku might have, would bring Yuta even closer to the power levels of Gojo and Sukuna. All the copying aside, if Yuta is to truly maximize his potential, he needs to learn to be more efficient with his Curse Energy Manipulation. There's a clear difference between the base hand-to-hand skills of someone like Gojo compared to someone like Yuta. And we've also seen that in Gojo vs. Sukuna, someone without the 6 eyes could still rival its efficiency with cursed energy. While it's true that Sukuna has at least double the amount of cursed energy Yuta has, it doesn't take away from the fact that if Yuta were to simply be more efficient with his cursed energy, he'd still get stronger. Furthermore, we've seen that Yuta's understanding of cursed energy is simply incomplete. Now that Yuta's seen things like open barrier domains, switching the domain conditions, shrinking the barrier, and healing a burnt out curse technique, Yuta can really begin to integrate those into his fighting style to really push him to the next level. However, even with more techniques, no time limit, and a drastically improved understanding and manipulation of cursed energy, there's still one thing holding Yuta back from his full potential, and that's his mindset. Simply put, Yuta is just too nice. We've seen that the strongest characters in the verse are all overwhelmingly selfish and prioritize themselves and their desires above all else. Uro said it, Ishigori said it, and despite that, the only thing Yuta actually seems to care about are his friends. As it currently stands, Yuta just doesn't have that dog in him the same way characters like Gojo and Sukuna do, and that is arguably his biggest flaw and the reason he hasn't reached the heights of Gojo and Sukuna. So there's 2 ways for Yuta to overcome his mindset flaw. The first, and the easiest, is to just abandon being a nice guy and become a calamity. If Yuta were to abandon his care for those around him and began to fight selfishly, I have no doubt that his growth would spike exponentially and he'd be near Gojo and Sukuna level in no time. We've already seen that Yuta is capable of enjoying a fight simply for the thrill of it when he clashed with Ishigori, so this is definitely a possibility. But aside from that one fight, Yuta doesn't seem like the type of guy to be incredibly selfish, so the other method comes from a warped sense of selfishness. In Volume 0, we see that Yuta fights to protect his friends, not only because he cares for them, but because he wants to reaffirm the fact that he's allowed to live. Geto calls this selfish, but that's exactly what Yuta needs to get stronger. We've seen that broadening the interpretation of techniques can improve their abilities, so it's possible that if Yuta could expand his interpretation of what being selfish is, his mindset would start to aid him in getting stronger, instead of making him weak. So instead of selflessly saving those around him because it's the right thing to do, Yuta could begin selfishly saving those so he won't be lonely, so he can be around others. While his actions are ultimately still seen as the nice guy, the reason he does it is selfish, and if Yuta's truest desire is to save people, he would be living according to his desire, which would make him stronger. I think this slight shift in mentality is the most likely path forward for Yuta, and it holds the key to turn Yuta from simply strong into possibly the strongest. So now that we've seen what it would take for Yuta to reach his full potential, let's quickly analyze how strong Yuta would be at his peak. As I said earlier, Yuta's full potential would have him adopting a more self-centered mindset, having unlimited access to Rika and her abilities, a myriad of copied curse techniques, everything from anti-gravity to possibly things like cleave and dismantle, and a vastly improved understanding and usage of curse energy to boost his overall ability as a sorcerer. With all these things in mind, it's clear that Yuta would be a monster amongst monsters. His curse energy pool is already higher than Gojo's, and as he continues to refine his curse energy manipulation and usage, copy more techniques, and adopt a mindset that's actually indicative of strength, I think it's entirely possible that Yuta at his full potential would surpass even the likes of Gojo.